Generation Y. Why are you scared of Donald Trump? I'm sure a lot of us are scared of Donald Trump, but for different reasons, of course. Here's what I had to say today when a college student asked me the same question.
So, what are your thoughts on the current presidential election?
I think that we're experiencing a political rift like none other. What's happening is we've had years of failed politicians elected into office by people who want change in government. People don't want big government encroaching onto their life anymore. And people feel like they're unfairly treated by, the rich as usual. But what's happening here is the result. Two explosive candidates were just fed into by years and years of political negligence. The Republicans are angry with Trump. It's the Republican Party's fault that Trump exists. We elect people to office, and they don't do the jobs that they're elected to do. That manifests anger, it manifests disdain, and it manifests shouts for a messiah to come answer all their prayers. And that's who Trump is, and that's why supporters of Trump are really rallying for him, because they say, you know what, this isn't working anymore. We don't have people elected into office that have our best interests in their minds. So that's the fanaticism of Donald Trump. Then you have the other side. It's people who are scared, people who are terrified of Donald Trump. And, I look at that and I say, well, what's wrong with him? Oh, he shouts and he's a despicable person and he's such a horrible person and he's a child. And I say, well, what makes you any better than him? If you think he's despicable for calling people names, you're calling him names right now. So instantly, you've already dismantled your own argument that you think he's incapable of holding any office because you behave the same way. So now the next step is to focus on principles. What are your principles and how do they differ from Donald Trump's principles? Oh, well, he's bad. You'll find that most of his critics don't really know too much about him. And when I say critics, I mean millennial critics, because there are a different kind of Trump critics that exist. And I'm one of those Trump critics, and it's the informed Trump critic, the person who's legitimately scared of Donald Trump rather than fictionally scared. And what I mean is this. A lot of people, like college students that you see today, are intimidated by the sheer force of a candidate like Donald Trump. But I kind of see him as the Hash-Slinging-Slasher in the shadows. That people are scared of something that they see in darkness but don't understand what it is. And maybe when he's the next president, he comes out of the shadows. And people say, maybe he's not so bad. Maybe he's an alright guy. But right now, he's in the shadows because people refuse to look past the shadow. People don't understand what he's about. And that is what manifests this fictional hatred for Donald Trump. I have a more realistic approach for my fear of the man, and it goes something like this. I'm more scared of him turning his back on conservative principles if he's elected, rather than being scared of just what he says and the way that he says it. Growing up, I don't think I've ever experienced a time in my life where I had a political figure to look up to in office. I never looked up to George W. Bush because I was too young to realize anything that was happening. I don't look up to Barack Obama, and I won't look up to Donald Trump if he's the candidate. I want to look up to my president, and that's what a lot of people see on the surface of not liking Donald Trump. They see, we can't have somebody who makes fun of disabled people and who acts like a child, and I agree with that.
So, when you say years of failed policies, are you talking about President Obama's presidency? Or are you talking about the whole 9 yards, the president, the Congress, and the Senate?
When I'm talking about Republicans rallying for Donald Trump in response to failed elections, what I mean is that Republicans elected a Congress and a Senate to act against the vision of Barack Obama. They elected that Congress and Senate, and that Congress and Senate did not do what it was elected to do. It meanders and it just dances around the idea of being a Republican. And that's why they want Donald Trump. Donald Trump's the guy who's going to say, screw all you guys who aren't doing your job, who are just making political gains and advancements by being elected. I'm going to get elected because I don't care. I don't have anything to lose by not getting elected. I'm going to get elected, and I'm going to do what it is that you want me to do. And that's the thrust. Even if people don't know his policies, that's the thrust and the rally behind Donald Trump.
So let me ask you this. In the Republican Party, if it weren't Donald Trump, because it's evident that he doesn't have the Republican Party establishment, who do you think the Republican Party should rally behind?
Right now, today is the day after Super Tuesday. We saw yesterday that Donald Trump has won. I'm not sure the exact number, but the fact that I don't know the exact number is what makes it striking, because it's a lot more than anyone else. Ted Cruz has won 4. Marco Rubio, by the skin of his teeth, has 1. What has to happen right now for the establishment is that they have to make up their mind. They have to say, we want Trump or we don't want Trump, okay? They can't pussyfoot around it, okay? So what has to happen is we have to look at the candidate who has wins, Ted Cruz. Anyone else who's running that's not Ted Cruz or Donald Trump needs to observe the fight for patriotism and conservatism that is being waged with Donald Trump. They need to say, I care more about conservative principles than myself. I will drop out and I will support one candidate to defeat the Trump machine, but they're not doing that. So you're seeing selfishness in the party on all accounts. But what has to happen is, regardless of selfishness, 2 people have to be selfless and rally behind one person. So I think that Marco Rubio, John Kasich need to drop out. They need to support Ted Cruz, and Ted Cruz can beat Donald Trump if it happens yesterday.
So do you think that the Republicans that ran for president and are still currently in the race are running on a 2008 Hillary Clinton campaign where they feel entitled to be president?
No, I don't think they feel entitled. I think they all have a similar message, and they're blinded by selfishness to mold that message into one strong machine. You have 2 ideologies. You have the right, which is Cruz, Rubio, and Rand Paul, people like that who have already dropped out, and then you have the alternate right, which is Donald Trump. You have to understand that the conservative principles are always to defend the Constitution. Nobody gains politically by protecting the Constitution. It's just not possible. You can't make deals, you can't get involved in big money if you're fiscally conservative. So I see it as selflessness on the fact that they're running for conservative principles in the Constitution, but selfishness for thinking that they are the best qualified when the numbers show that they're not.
So if President Donald Trump were to be elected, how would you react?
President Donald Trump, for me, is a big what if. Because right now you see rhetoric from Donald Trump. You don't see plans, you don't see details, you don't see outlines, you see rhetoric. Okay? And they ask him in the debates, Donald Trump, what are your plans? Oh, we have great people. We have great people. We were going to make America great again. That's all he can say. Okay? And that's a great message for people to rally behind. Make America great. But how? And it's the same thing with Bernie Sanders. How? Tell me how. I don't care what you say, I care what your motives are. How on this green earth are you going to do that? And he doesn't have an answer. So what worries me is not his relentlessness, and it's not his childish behavior, and it's not the way that people think he's insensitive towards different people, because I don't care about how sensitive you are. I don't care how empathetic you are. I care about if you're going to defend this country and the principles it was founded on. That's what I care about. If Donald Trump's going to do that, then he will unite the country, albeit not uniting the party. The party is going to be in disarray no matter who wins this election. The Republican Party is going to be split in half, no matter who wins. Donald Trump could be the next Reagan. He could do everything right. Donald Trump could build that wall. He can make the Mexicans pay for it. He could be an American hero. But if he flubs, if he trips, if he stumbles, he brings a bad name to the Republican Party that will take decades to recover. So when you ask me what I would think of a Donald Trump presidency, I think that it's all up in the air, so much so that nobody, even people who oppose him, can possibly conjure an idea of what on earth it will be like.
Will Donald Trump win the Republican nomination? Will Donald Trump run as a third party if he does not? Comment below and we can have an educated discussion about it. For Generation Y, asking the question why, I'm Mateo. Thanks for listening. And don't forget to stay educated and understand consequences.